Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special earlier edition of Grid Life Pre-Race. Joe Samaniego here, along with Isha Azim from Racing with Isha and Jackson Todd from 36xracing.com. A big thank you to our Patreon subscribers for investing in the Grid Network. Colin, the show, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew. You too can invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. The band, they're kicking up again, so we'll just tell the band to keep it quiet for now. But you'll get some Grid Network stickers if you invest in us through Patreon. And of course, you do $10 or more through YouTube, Buy Me a Coffee, Super Chats. You also get stickers as well, too. What a morning. I know it's a little bit early for all of us here, but Jackson, big thing, Formula One, they're going to start the normal time we're on the air, so we had to come on the air, talk about F1 and everything going on at Saudi Arabia on the track and off the track.
Yeah, we are just 2 hours away from lights out at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix at the Jeddah Street Circuit. It's the fastest street circuit in Formula One. Once again, Max Verstappen is on pole. He was more than 0.3 of a second faster than the second place qualifying Charles Leclerc in Q3. Max is undoubtedly the favorite this weekend. His race win odds on DraftKings are way down at -800. However, news surrounding Max's future, his dad, Christian Horner, and the entire Red Bull organization has really been picking up. Including these rumors that Max Verstappen might end up at Mercedes. Is there any chance that these stories could distract Max and create an opportunity for someone else to win this weekend?
I don't think so. If it were any other driver, I might say that they could have potentially a hard time separating, off track news with their on track racing. But when it comes to Max Verstappen, I think mentally he's pretty strong and he doesn't really bring any sort of like news that's troubling him while he's racing. So I don't think this is going to impact his racing. But, other than the racing, he might have more to talk about this, and other things could happen. But I don't think this is going to affect his racing at all.
I would agree with you, Isha. This is not going to impact Max Verstappen at all. He's been cool under pressure all the time, especially when he was in a title fight with Lewis Hamilton, going up against one of the future legends in F1. Max Verstappen, no doubt, he is ready to get this race going, focus on winning the race. The one concern I have a little bit is the Red Bull organization itself. Christian Horner, the pit crew, the strategists, they might be having some tension within that organization. I think that could be a factor, and that's what could be a potential issue for Max Verstappen. But here's the thing: as long as they're flawless as usual, their pit stops are fast, their strategy, even if Max Verstappen's 10 plus seconds ahead of the field, they could have little mistakes here and there. But overall, I think Max Verstappen, he should be on cruise control really to get the win. If this was something like, say, IndyCar or NASCAR where the field's so close, then I think it'll be a bigger issue. But I think Max is just going to walk away with this.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Many throughout the paddock and throughout the motorsports world are focused on the turmoil at Red Bull this weekend. News broke this week that the female employee accusing Christian Horner of misconduct has been suspended. We'll continue to follow developments on this Red Bull investigation here at the Grid Network, particularly on Grid Tonight. Between that story lacking transparency from Red Bull and the FIA whistleblower alleging that at last year's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, the FIA president intervened to overturn a penalty against Fernando Alonso. How concerning is it for F1 that these negative headlines are overshadowing on-track activity, which has been dominated by just one team this season, and having that one team caught up in investigations?
Yeah, Jackson, I think it is pretty concerning, and it comes at a pretty poor time for Formula One too, because right now, they're growing a lot. They're gaining lots of new fans, and all their Netflix work, especially, has had a big hand in this. But then on top of that, you're bringing in the 2024 season with so much negative news surrounding Formula One, and it just really asks a lot of questions, and it points a lot of fingers. So it's really making it very concerning for Formula One, and it could definitely impact on track activity as well, causing more frustrations and problems and issues with the teams. So I think it's really not a good start for the 2024 season for Formula One, and I think that this could really have some negative impacts on Formula One and its fan base around the world.
I pretty much echo everything Isha said. The one thing I'll also say too, especially as someone that follows multiple disciplines of motorsports, I've always been under the impression if Formula One, the pinnacle of motorsports, the one series where we have closest to true racing, where essentially you're telling all the teams, you come here, you build your car within a certain amount of rules, the Formula F1, you go out there, you race with little to no disruptions unless it's safety related, safety car, red flag for something that occurs on the track. This is because we have to pure racing where other form of motorsports, NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula E, you have more spec parts. Whereas the chassis, NASCAR, they don't build their own cars no more. They now have the Lara essentially providing their chassis. Same with IndyCar. F1 is the closest thing we have to pure motorsports, pure racing. If they're doing good, doing strong, as they're growing their fan base, you know there's going to be people always expanding. Oh, I want to get into IndyCar, Formula E, NASCAR, attend more motorsports event, including down to their local tracks. I think it's a big benefit for everyone. So when you have the pinnacle of motorsports surrounding negativity, I feel this is unhealthy, not just for F1, but it could have a trickle down effect, especially here in the United States. Each, as you mentioned, Netflix has helped Formula One just balloon here and it's been really phenomenal to see. United States, though, there's so many choices for when it comes to sports, entertainment. If someone gets turned off on F1, I'm afraid they may just discredit all motorsports. So overall, I'm hoping this all just gets taken care of, resolved, because for the benefit of the sport, not just F1, but all motorsports, I think it'll be great because at the end, I've always under the belief if F1's thriving, the other motorsports will have a trickle down effect and be thriving as well.
Definitely. Another major story in the paddock this week is that the driver third in the Drivers' Championship is not racing. Carlos Sainz is out with appendicitis, and Oliver Bearman is in the car. Charles Leclerc is starting second. Oliver is starting 11th, the two Ferraris. Normally, Ferrari would have both cars near the front at the start and contending for podiums. With such unique circumstances and likely one car running in contention for a podium, could we see more focus on Charles, and is that going to give him an opportunity to steal a win from Max?
It is an opportunity in the aspect that the team's not going to be too concerned that, okay, Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc, we got to monitor them, maybe give team ownership. We see one of them being faster than the other, or the stress about one of them making contact, which is the worst case scenario with your teammate. But right now, Charles Leclerc, I think he's going to get a lot of emphasis, a lot more attention on what could go great with the strategy towards Max Verstappen, trying to beat Max Verstappen. It's still a tall task, but overall, I think the other thing that could be a benefit too, if Charles Leclerc is comfortably in second place and it just looks like, unless we have a safety issue to close the field up through a safety car or a red flag, if they know for Charles Leclerc's coming home second place comfortably, they could then potentially work with Oliver Bearman, get him experience, so that way we should see Carlos Sainz again back. But what an effort for Oliver to get his first race and nearly got into Q2.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Ferrari is definitely going to put all of their pennies with Charles Leclerc and try to get him to win if possible. But we know that that's not exactly going to happen. Ferrari's gonna try to make it happen, but, you know, Carlos Sainz being out with his surgery is actually a little bit beneficial for Charles Leclerc because that means that then he doesn't have that on-track, rivalry with his own teammate that we saw an example of, last weekend in Bahrain. So that's something that's advantageous for him and for Ferrari because now they don't have to worry about, trying to also help out Carlos Sainz while also trying to get Charles Leclerc to perform well. This time they can just put all of their pennies with Charles Leclerc because Oliver Bearman right now there is basically there to get experience and to try his best, but he's not the driver that they're going to be concerned about the most. So I think that Ferrari is going to try their hardest to get Charles that win, but I don't exactly think it's going to happen because in front of him is not only just Max Verstappen but also Sergio Perez.
That's a really good point that Red Bull still has two cars. It's not just Max versus Charles. Hello from Indonesia. Welcome to the Grid Network. And Adam here thinks that Bearman is still going to be able to get a top 10 and score some points for Mercedes today. Behind Max and Charles, we find Sergio Perez and Fernando Alonso. Those are our top 4 starters. Then we have a pair of McLarens. And then behind them, we find the Mercedes of George Russell and Lewis Hamilton starting in 7th and 8th. Last week, Mercedes had an overheating issue at Bahrain. Less than a week later, we're back on track in Saudi Arabia. Do we foresee overheating issues causing more problems for Mercedes this week?
Yeah, this is a bit of a tricky question. Last week it certainly ruined the race, you could say, for Lewis Hamilton. Definitely made it pretty tough for him to score points. But this weekend, the track is a pretty fast-paced circuit, so there is the possibility that the Mercedes could heat up again and it could present more issues for Lewis Hamilton. But even if that doesn't end up happening, I feel like the Mercedes are still going to be struggling a bit. And that, I think Lewis Hamilton seems to be struggling more with this Mercedes than George Russell. So I think that we could potentially see some trouble for Mercedes today.
I have to agree with you, Isha. I feel Mercedes, they might be in a little bit of trouble. George Russell, especially after the early practice sessions, I thought, okay, he's going to be up front again. Qualifying didn't exactly go that well, and we see the McLarens ahead of them. I think they're going to have a big battle with the McLarens today in the race, trying to get ahead of them. I'm really curious to see what happened with Fernando Alonso. He has a Mercedes power unit. Could he stay up front overall? I just think this is starting to look like it's going to be just another one of those years for Mercedes, third consecutive year where they're not exactly contending for wins. Maybe good qualifying efforts, maybe some podiums. But at the end, it just looks like it's going to be another long, potentially dreadful year for Mercedes.
All right, let's jump into a lightning round here to wrap up our F1 discussion this morning. First up, Yuki Tsunoda. He qualified 5 positions ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, his teammate, who is going to be the higher finishing I already forgot. V-car?
V-car.
All right, who's going to be the top finishing V-car car, Joe?
Oh gosh, Visa Cash App Racing Bulls. Yeah, V-car. I'm going to go with Yuki Tsunoda. I think he is motivated. He just has to stay confident. Don't make any silly mistakes, especially in the start. I think Yuki's going to get it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, Joe. I think Yuki Tsunoda is going to take a higher position over Daniel Ricciardo. I think he's going to be out to prove himself, especially after the whole, V-carb drama that happened last race in Bahrain.
Yeah, for sure. All right, both Haas entries out-qualified the Alpine entries. Is Alpine the worst car on the grid this year, Isha?
I feel like I want to watch another race or two until I say yes, but as of now, yes, it is a tentative yes. They are just in a completely different league right now.
Easily right now, I have to agree with you. They're the worst car. Let's see what happens. I think they have the resources to climb up, but it's not looking that pretty at all.
No. Alex Albon, he's starting 12th today. He is yet to score a point in his 2 races at Jeddah. Is he going to be able to finish top 10 in his Williams today and score some points?
I'm going to say no. I think the top 10 starters are all capable of getting points. Only if something happened to Yuki, but I think Albon's going to be pointless here at Saudi Arabia still.
I feel like I have to disagree. I think Alex Albon can finish in the top 10 today. Looking at the 2 drivers ahead of him, I think that he has a chance to get ahead.
Max Verstappen is the only driver to finish on the podium multiple times at the Jeddah circuit. Isha, Joe, let me hear your podium predictions.
Obviously, number 1 goes to Max Verstappen. Second, I'm going to put it with Sergio Perez again. And then third, it's going to be Charles Leclerc. So it's pretty similar to Bahrain.
Honestly, you took mine, the same 3 I had in the same order. If I was to do something a little different, it's not the most creative. I'll swap Sergio Perez and Leclerc positions, but I think you got it on the money, Isha. That's the 3 I see.
Mm-hmm. All right, now shifting gears over to MotoGP. It is back this weekend. It looks like Jorge Martin is fastest and set to be on pole. Last year, he came up short of his first MotoGP championship. What would a win this weekend mean for Jorge, Joe?
A win for Jorge, I think, will be a huge confidence boost because one of the big things with Jorge Martin is it seems every year, the last couple years in MotoGP, when he gets started out, the first two races is a crash here, a DNF here, maybe one strong podium here. He's on the pole now. He controls his destiny essentially in this race weekend with the sprint and the Grand Prix. He has proven time and time again he is so good at the sprint races where he doesn't have to worry too much about tire management. If he could have that confidence and have an early points lead, I think he could really, rather than work from the ground up, from being behind, getting himself out of a point deficit, to being ahead, making everyone chase him. That's where I think the big difference could be putting the pressure on the field rather than pressure on himself. Overall, this is going to be really interesting. His Ducati, they're looking fast. We see the factory team is up there. His teammate, though, Franco Morbidelli, 22nd. What happened there? It's going to be really interesting to see how his team is going to handle. But several Ducatis in the top 10. Marc Marquez, 6. Everyone's going to be watching him. I think this is a great opportunity for Jorge Martin to sort of be under the radar, get the win as everyone's looking at what Pecco Bagnaia, the defending champions, do. What can Marc Marquez do with now his teammate, his brother, Alex Marquez, and then Fabio Quartararo, the Yamahas, everyone's going to be, I think, talking about their struggles and if Fabio is going to stick around anymore with Yamaha after this year. So overall, if Jorge Martin could get a win, be under the radar this weekend, I think that's going to be a huge benefit for him and his championship hopes.
All right. This weekend marks Trackhouse's first weekend in MotoGP. Both riders are starting in the top 15, with the top 15 finishers earning points in MotoGP. Do you think the Trackhouse team will be able to score points this week? And how would you grade their effort so far?
So far, I'll grade their effort up. I gotta say, probably a B plus, because one of the big things, MotoGP, you got to come out and you got to be pretty quick. You have to design a good bike or have a customer team outfit and get the bike. That's what he got with Aprilia. Aprilia, they're pretty good. Alicia Spargro, who's starting second for the factory team. You got Maverick Vinales in the top 10. So we know they got a pretty good bike overall. I am surprised that Raul did qualify ahead of Miguel Oliveira. Fernandez, overall, I thought he was going to be the number 2 rider this year. He's really outperformed Miguel Oliveira. If he could continue that, stay in the top 10, I think that could be really great. He only is 2 positions away from a top 10 finish. Miguel Oliveira, especially if we get rainy, wet, tricky conditions, he is so good when it comes to rain conditions. That could be a big benefit from him. The weather forecast didn't look like that was going to be the case, but overall, he has the experience. He's been sidelined with unfortunate injuries here and there. He knows how to win a race. I think this is a great opportunity for him to come back. And for really Trackhouse, if they score double points in their first weekend of MotoGP, that'll be a huge accomplishment and something they could hang their heads high that, hey, look what we did in our first race weekend. And I think for them, the American team, that could get some people more interested in MotoGP.
For sure. We're going to move on from MotoGP for now. We will recap both the sprint race and the Grand Prix on our post-race show tomorrow. Some comments in the chat. Zarco outperformed Honda in the qualifying earlier. That's good insight there.
Yeah, Zarco, what an effort. Now that he's with the LCR Honda team, overall it's going to be really interesting what he did. I was so convinced that this was not a good move for Zarco. He finally got his first win last year, so now we'll see what he does with Honda.
All right, so now we're going to move on to IndyCar. Isha, what's going on in IndyCar land?
That's right, Jackson. Shifting gears over to one of the most unpredictable series, we have the NTT INDYCAR Series. Now, the last 4 years here at St. Petersburg have seen 4 winners. The last four winners are in the field, and the last time Will Power won was back in 2014. Yesterday, Felix Rosenqvist took the fastest honors in free practice one. So, Jackson, were there any other surprises in the field yesterday? And how much do you think that will translate into qualifying?
I mean, it's hard to I mean, we're not even through race 1, we're just through practice session 1, and so it's hard to, draw many conclusions. Felix on the top in the Meyer-Shank car, that's I would say that's pretty surprising. Something else I would point out is Romain Grosjean down in 7th in his first weekend with the Juncos cars. That's pretty surprising to me. I'll be interested to see how much of that does translate to qualifying because, I mean, I don't know that if Grosjean can qualify in the top 10, if Felix is getting those Meyer Shank cars in the top 10, that could really shake up the championship picture this year.
Yeah, the front of the field, quite a few surprises up there. I did not anticipate seeing Felix Rosenqvist up there on the top. But we know in the past, Marc Racing has had fast vehicles. It just seemed last year was a real down year. Then with Simon Pagenaud the year before just didn't seem to be clicking that well. But Felix, I think he's motivated. He really wants to show McLaren that I could get the job done. It'll be really interesting to see what he could do. Marcus Armstrong, I'm starting to become a believer that I think he could potentially get a breakthrough win. I mean, he was really good in select races this year. Now, second year, I would not be surprised if he's in the top three again for qualifying. I think he could pull off a potential upset that we'll be talking about on Sunday.
Yep, and speaking of interesting, Caleb Lott's situation is quite an interesting question because last year he lost his ride and was replaced by Romain Grosjean here with McLaren. David Malukas, on the other hand, is sidelined with a hand injury from mountain biking. Last year, Elliott finished in fifth place. So, Joe and Jackson, do you guys think he can score another top five finish? And what does this do to the McLaren situation with drivers and enough seats?
One of the things I know earlier this week on Grid Roundtable, they were talking about Arrow McLaren and Alexander Rossi. Could he potentially be in the hot seat because he hasn't really performed to the level where there's Pato Award, Felix Rosenquist. Felix Rosenquist is gone now. You got a young David Malukas. Callum, gee whiz, Callum Isla, I think is still such a shame he's not in the grid of IndyCar full time. But if he has a good, strong race weekend, that could really make it dicey for McLaren because I think he's going to add a little bit of pressure on Alexander Rossi. I don't think enough to where he has to worry about his seat yet. But for David Malukas, I feel pretty bad for him. I know, as Alex from the Gay Racing Podcast has said, it's like you're missing your first day of work over a mountain biking injury. That is not a good way to start your new tenure with McLaren. So overall, I think that's just going to make him a little bit more under the pressure when he comes back. That, okay, if Calvin has some good runs at St. Pete's, potentially the Thermal Club, we want to see you do good in that same car as well.
Yeah, I think a top 5 might be tough for Ilott, but I definitely think he'll be competitive. He showed some great talent last year in the Juncos cars, and it's kind of the McLaren seat situation. It feels like over the last few years, that's just been like this underlying story behind IndyCar. I don't I mean, yeah, like Joe said, it's hard to, say that a result in race 1 is gonna decide who's on the hot seat, come the end of this season. I think Alexander Rossi is obviously a remarkable talent, and I think Arrow McLaren as a team needs to break through and get some wins this year to kind of prove where the team is at. Because you can't say Rossi's not winning, but Pato didn't win last year either. And so, all that being said, I expect a strong effort from Islet this weekend, and hope we'll be contending at least in the same chunk of the field where Award and Rossi find themselves.
Yep, now coming back to the race and its winners, only one driver has won this race from outside the top 10, and that was Sebastian Bourdais. Now, everyone else has won from the top 10 in this race, so qualifying is definitely going to be key in terms of final spots. Another key, however, is strategy and the timing of cautions. 2022 had only one caution, however, every year we see at least two or more. Five we saw last year, and the record was eight back in 2018. So, Jackson, does this allow teams to enter with more ideas or does it limit them since a caution can throw the plans right out the window?
I think you can come in with ideas, but you got to stay flexible. If you're going to end up on plan like E or F, you have to be ready for that situation. I think that's I think it's part of the IndyCar appeal is that since it's pretty much a spec series, a lot of it is coming down to these strategy calls and staying flexible and how you're able to adapt to race situations and tire choice. And so I wouldn't say it limits them at all. I think it just blows open the possible strategy choices you can make at the race.
I feel it just adds chaos too if you're a strategist just trying to figure out what's going to happen, the cautions, especially around green flag pit stops. That's where we saw Roman Grosjean, Scott McLaughlin got together last year. The other thing too you got to factor in, we've seen how race control, especially if a potential caution could come out during green flag pit stops, they'll let the race keep going to allow everyone to make the pit stop so you're not penalized for pitting first, going to the back, and then the caution coming out. I think that has to be a great concern to a lot of the IndyCar teams about this race weekend, what's going to happen overall with race control. So I bet they have a lot of scenarios. I believe it was a couple of years ago where it was over in F1. We heard like Ferrari was like, we're now on plan. I forgot what letter, but it's like how many plans have they gone through? I feel in IndyCar, they might have that same number of plans from A through Z because the safety cars, full course cautions are more likely in the street course. You just got to be really flexible and just aware of what all the other teams and drivers are doing around the circuit.
Yep, and with that now, let's head into our lightning round. So for the first question, Joe, we'll be starting with you. Alex Palou. You think he will improve?
Or Alex Palou, yes, I think he's going to improve and finish in 10th.
Yeah, I'd have to go look at the numbers, but last year, didn't Alex Palou finish in the top 8? And it was in nearly every race he was finishing in that top 8. So I think pretty, standard IndyCar, consistent track, he'll definitely be able to get a top 10.
All right, and back to you, Jackson. Pato O'Ward nearly won this race last year. Is he on the short list of favorites?
It's kind of like we're talking about McLaren earlier. I think they can win. It's just they need to get over this hump and reach that point. Being second on the practice charts yesterday is certainly a good start point for them. I think he's definitely on the list of favorites.
I think he's on the list of favorites for pole. He's been super fast at this track in the past. I would not be surprised if he's on the pole. If he gets the pole, he has to be the favorite for the win, in my opinion.
All right, and back to you, Joe. Teammate Alexander Rossi is the slowest among McLaren drivers. Do you think he's under pressure to perform?
If he finishes last out of the McLaren drivers, yes. I don't think it's like he has to worry about his seat just yet, but just the optics of you've been here for quite some time and now you're third behind Callum Ilott, a replacement, and Pato O'Ward. So yeah, I think the pressure will start building.
I don't know if the pressure's there. I think this weekend, this might be a theme to follow throughout the season if he does fall behind O'Ward. And then when Malukas comes back, that'll be an interesting benchmark. But I think this weekend, Rossi can just stick to his thing.
All right, now Jack Harvey is faster than 2 of the 3 RLL cars. Can he beat all 3?
I guess it's possible. I feel like we kind of wrote Jack Harvey out a few years ago, but I don't think he can beat all 3. That's a tough task.
Yeah, I mean Graham Rahal, if he doesn't improve easily, Fittipaldi, I think he's going to have a hard challenge in the weekend. So I think he got 2 out of 3 cover, but I don't think he's going to get all 3 of them.
All right, and here is the final question of this lightning round. From the round table, Battle of the Mid, Will Power or Colton Herta, who will finish ahead?
Oh boy, I'm gonna go with Colton Herta.
Man, I don't like this being called the Battle of the Mid, but between Colton Herta and Will Power, I'll give it to Will Power this week.
All right, now let's take a look at these comments. So Kane's Cats Heat says, hello from St. Pete. And I believe they had another comment. Yeah, incredible atmosphere over here. Yes, it must be quite exciting. Now, continuing on, Alex Palou is the favorite to win at plus 450. Award, Kyle Kirkwood, and Scott McLaughlin, as well as Scott Dixon, are all favorites at plus 800. Now, this is all according to pointspread.com. Kyle Kirkwood is in his second season with Andretti Global. McLaughlin is ahead of veteran Newgarden and Will Power. So out of these four drivers, the oldest is McLaughlin at just 30. Now, Jackson and Joe, are we seeing a change where the younger generation is up front more than the veterans like Power, Dixon, and Newgarden?
I feel like this was kind of the theme at the end of last year's IndyCar season. But in that same vein, like Scott Dixon still went on a tear in the second half of the season. He still ended up finishing near the top of the championship. Joseph Newgarden won all those oval races. Like, I mean, every time you try to move on to somebody else, it's like, oh no, Scott Dixon's still here. Like Joseph Newgarden is still here. You can't completely move on. I think. I mean, I feel like I can't stop talking about McLaren, but I feel like I'm still waiting on Pato O'Ward to get a win. And once he gets a win, then maybe we can say we've moved on and we can be into this new group. But until Pato starts winning, until Kirkwood starts winning regularly, until Herta starts winning regularly, no, this is still Will Power, Scott Dixon, Joseph Newgarden. It's still their series.
I think especially Scott Dixon, he is getting closer and closer to that win record. I think he could get it done. When it comes to Will Power, it's going to be hard. I feel he has some years where he's just phenomenal. But you got to remember the last year he got the championship 2 years ago. One race win. The consistency is what's really good for him. If he could have a very consistent year, I think that'll be great. It's just going to be a matter of what the other drivers do, because Alex Palou, worst finish, 8th place last year. That's just an insane stat where in IndyCar seems everybody has at least one DNF. He did not have that. Joseph Newgarden, the ovals, that's his bread and butter, I feel. He's going to be a favorite to win. He has to improve on the consistency, though. That's where Scott Dixon really excels. The consistency, and then just the 2-3 races he's get out there going for the win, just always seems to be there at some point. Yes, we do have younger talents. I mean, Kyle Kirkwood, I think he's going to get wins. Alex Palou, he's a favorite. Pato O'Ward, he has to get the wins now. I mean, last year being winless and everything, he needs to start winning for this McLaren team. They got good equipment. They're fast, especially at Indianapolis. They're going to have even Kyle Larson come over for the Indy 500. I think they have to be really Top Gun materials this year and go out there, start getting some wins.
Definitely. And with that, IndyCar practice and qualifying will be happening later today, and the race will be tomorrow, but we are not done yet. Let us shift gears one final time and take a look at NASCAR. So, qualifying is coming up for the NASCAR Cup Series in a few hours. Kyle Larson is coming off last weekend's win at Vegas, and according to DraftKings, he is at plus 750 this morning. He is third behind Logano, and Bell has led all morning. He has an average starting position of 6.263 at Phoenix, second best to Ryan Blaney. Blaney is at a 6.16 average starting position. He was also second here last time and was the 2023 Cup Series champion. So Jackson and Joe, could we see a duel between Larson in the Chevrolet versus Blaney in the Ford?
Last week we had the podium of Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, and Ryan Blaney, and I think it was Dylan McCollum, quote tweeted my thing about that and called that the new big three. And I think it might be. It'll be really exciting. You get a Ford, a Chevy, and a Toyota. I think Larson in the Chevy, Blaney in the Ford, Reddick in the Toyota. I could see that being a theme throughout this season and see no reason it would be any different this weekend between Larson and Blaney with their strengths at this track.
Larson and Blaney, I think this could be a phenomenal battle this year at Phoenix. I'm going to be looking, though, at potentially Ross Chastain being a factor in there, too, especially what he did the last time at Phoenix. I think he's going to be somebody the two of them are going to really have to battle. Overall, I think Ryan Blaney, he seems to be off to a much better start with great races overall. He has the championship. He knows he could get the job done. I just feel like he's sort of, especially as Logano has had some bad luck, he's sort of the number one Penske driver right now. Joey Logano, excuse me, Ryan Blaney.
All right, now I've got a quick follow up for you both here. So, yesterday, Kyle Larson was the favorite at plus 500. Are you guys surprised that he's behind Logano and Bell?
I'm not. I mean, I'm a little surprised. Logano was on top of a single lap practice chart. But I think the thing with Bell is interesting because we were just at Phoenix like 4 races ago, and I think that's kind of one of these unique things about the NASCAR schedule, going to tracks twice a year. Particularly interesting with Phoenix, where like the last time we were not at a super speedway or an intermediate, it was Phoenix. There's not a lot, nothing. I mean, a whole offseason happened, but nothing that we can see. Christopher Bell didn't get to finish that Phoenix race when he was in the championship four. And I think Joey Logano, if I had to say which one is more justified to be above Larson, I guess it would be Logano because of the speed that the Penske's have shown at Phoenix and as evidence their championship wins the last 2 years there.
For me, I was surprised to see Bell sort of up front because, especially what happened last year before. Okay, he was up there, championship four. So for me, that caught me by surprise. But Joey Logano, he knows how to win here too. I gotta be honest. I think Logano, he's gonna have a strong qualifying effort. He has an impressive streak going on. Overall, for Kyle Larson dropped to third, especially after the way he sort of dominated Las Vegas, leading the most laps, sweeping the stages. It's hard to bet against him, but if you were gonna bet for Kyle Larson instead of 500, 750, and you're feeling that confident he's gonna get the job done, well, you just made out a lot better. So it'll be really interesting to see. I think qualifying will be a good indicator, and if we see a significant shift again.
Definitely. Now let's take a look at some of the teams. So Hendricks leads all teams in wins here with 13 wins. Joe Gibbs Racing is tied for second with 7 wins, and the last one was in 2021 with Martin Truex Jr. Now that was also the last time that Toyota had won here in Phoenix. Considering this is hosting the championship deciding event later, do you guys anticipate Toyota coming here with new setups to try and find some extra speed? Joe, what do you think?
I think Toyota, this is very interesting. I feel it's a little bit of a challenge because whatever you had going on, whereas you see Martin Truex, the Toyotas up front, you want to keep that, but we have a brand new car. You would love to have that car come out, be super fast, and just hard to beat because then you're feeling really good about the championship race at the end of the season. But I think if they come out and, okay, they're not exactly towards the front, they might have two, maybe three cars in the top 10 throughout the race. Especially if you're not in the top 10 or worse, you're not in the top 20. I think that's where they're really going to start looking into, okay, what can we do to make this car better, get it towards the front? Let's just start experimenting because at the end of the day, you just got to get one win, then you're in the playoffs. You get to Phoenix and you have a shot at it. Most of the time, you have to get the win. So I think it's going to be really interesting, and I think this could favor, especially Gibbs Racing. If you have one driver that's not having a good race, start trying experimental stuff, trying to find extra speed, and then have that data go to the other teams.
Yeah, I'm really entertained by this manufacturer discourse we're kind of getting deeper into with NASCAR, where we kind of associate the Toyotas together, we associate the Fords together. And I think this week it's the 10 lap averages in practice. 4 of the top 5 best 10 lap averages were Toyotas. And among that, it was only one JGR car, but the two Legacy Motor Club cars. So I think they're kind of the team to watch this weekend now in their new Toyota era. I know last week I was listening to the Kyle Busch's radio, and on one of the late restarts, he got passed by one of those Legacy Motor Club cars, and he made a comment kind of dunking on the ECR engines because this team that just switched from Chevy to Toyota blew past him. So I'm definitely interested to see what Toyota does this weekend with it being the championship track as well, and particularly Legacy Motor Club in the context of this season and their switch to Toyota.
Yep. Now, before we move on to look at the active drivers, we have a comment by Diggs BTW saying, "Hey, what's up?" So thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our amazing content throughout the week. And with that, let's continue. So Kevin Harvick used to be the active driver with the most laps led here, and he is still the all-time leader. Now Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, and Ryan Blaney are the top 5 active drivers. And the winner of this race has mostly come from the top 10 about 58% of the time. So Jackson, why does this track see such a high percentage of winners from the top 10? What do you think?
I think there's kind of a few factors here. I think a bit of it, at least in recent years, has to be the short track package has not been, I guess, the ideal for NASCAR, and that seems to give an advantage to teams with track position. I think another part of that is also the pit road. It's a unique pit road. I know pit lane choices or pit box choice is pretty important here at Phoenix, especially that first pit box. I think those are some important factors, and I just think I think just since it's a unique layout, there's a certain craft that it takes to work at Phoenix, and I think some drivers might just have it figured out more than others.
When you mention a unique craft, this track being unique, since they reconfigure it, I have a hard time with the turn numbers. But essentially, what used to be the old turn 3 and 4, now I believe is turn 1 and 2. Long sweeping corners. If you got a car handling that really good, you could come off, get a great run on the back stretch, the old front stretch. It turn 2, 3, and 4, which is the old turn 1 and 2. And that's a much more faster corner. Your car's going to be loose or tight getting in and then going out. Might get tight, climb up towards the wall. It's just such a hard track. And then, of course, if you're just don't have to set up, you started towards the back, this is the first race where you could go a lap down early if you're struggling really bad. So I think it does put a pressure on qualifying where you got to be up front. If you're not, you're probably going to fall a lap down. And especially if we get a caution-free first stage, several cars could go a lap down before you know it.
So I have a follow-up for you both. If a driver is starting outside the top 10, does that mean that they're potentially in some trouble?
I think starting outside the top 10, it makes it a little easier to put yourself in a position where you're in trouble, but you can still manage your race and still come out with a good day. I think if you can, like Joe said, don't go lap down. If you can keep yourself on the lead lap, if you can look for opportunities to flip stages, if you can, get stage points, maybe you're not going to get a result, but you can catch some stage points here or there. You can still come out with a good day, even if it doesn't mean a top 10 finishing position.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Jackson on everything. If you could just have all those factors, you're going to be in a good spot. At least you know you got a stage break coming where that could potentially put you in a spot where, okay, we're going to be working on getting the car set up better for you for the long runs, especially. But if we get a quick caution, I would say lap 20, as long as you don't bring out the caution, that could be a great benefit to, okay, let's pit, get off cycle, and then try to work our ways to the front. But yeah, I think it's not a deal breaker if you're outside the top 10, but it's not exactly the best scenario that, okay, let's see how we stack up come race condition, because maybe they have a setup that's good for the long runs and then they could progress their way towards the front. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, starting outside the top 10 isn't exactly an ideal scenario. But before we move on to the lightning round, there is one more comment, I believe. So this person says, "Can I get a hi?" Of course you can. Hello from the Grid Network. I hope you're enjoying this show so far. And if you are, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our content. But with that, let us now take a look at the lightning round. So we'll be starting with you. Stewart-Haas Racing is tied for the second most wins. What is their chance of winning this weekend? Are we looking at 100% chance, 75, 50, 25, or potentially 0% chance?
Oh, I almost want to say 0% chance, but Chase Briscoe has won here a couple of years ago. I'm going with 25%, and I feel I'm being generous.
Yeah, I'm going with 0. I got these 10 lap practice averages come up. The top SHR car is Ryan Preece in 21st. That is not good race pace unless they come out with some stellar qualifying effort, which unfortunately I don't expect. I don't think an SHR car is winning this weekend.
All right, so it's not looking too good for Stewart-Haas Racing. But Jackson, back to you. Christopher Bell has a 50% top 10 finish rate at Phoenix. Will he finish in the top 10 again?
I think this one is a simple yes.
I'll go yes too. I know what happened the last time was just bad luck, hitting the wall. If he has a good run, no trouble. Yeah, easily top 10 finish.
All right, Joe, back to you. Alex Bowman and Michael McDowell are both from Arizona. Which Arizonian do you think finishes ahead?
I'm going with Alex Bowman. This is the track that sort of launched his career towards full time. I think he's feeling pretty good. Overall, solid start, just some bad luck, but if he could get the job done, he will. He'll finish ahead of front row.
Yeah, Joe, the first thing I thought about was when he was subbing for Dale Jr. at Phoenix, and that was kind of his first big moment into the Cup Series. I have to pick Alex Bowman this weekend.
All right, now Joey Logano has qualified for the front row in every race. Will he qualify front row again, Jackson? What do you think?
I mean, yeah, I feel like yes. I mean, at the top of the single lap practice chart, and I don't see any reason why not. I'll say yes. It would be pretty neat.
It's a yes as well too. I mean, why won't he? He's top of the chart. He's been on the front row every race. That's an easy yes, I feel.
All right, and here is the final question for the lightning round. Both Legacy Motor Club drivers are in the top 16 of points. Will both, one, or neither be in the top 16 leaving, Joe?
Oh my goodness. Eric Jones, I think yes. John Hunter Nemechek, that's the one. I'm gonna say he's gonna fall out of the top 16. I mean, he's so close to the border right now, and I think Stenhouse or LaJoy can have a good run.
See, I mean, I was just hyping up Legacy Motor Club, and so yes, I think they're going to be able to stay in the top 16. But I think, which direction? Over the graphic over there, I think Corey LaJoy, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Hammock Briscoe, I don't think those guys are going to be able to get past the Legacy Motor Club guys in points. I think maybe, I guess someone could win and shoot them up to the top, and that would change the bubble. But I think Legacy Motor Club, they can be pretty stable coming out of Phoenix in the top 16, which is a phenomenal start to their season.
All right, now that is all for our NASCAR lightning round. Qualifying will be later today, but we have MotoGP Sprint and Formula One Saudi Arabian Grand Prix happening today. So Jackson, lead us to pick a winner.
All right. Welcome to this weekend's edition of Pick a Winner. Ben leads both Pick a Winner and Pick 7th. There are still over 100 races left this year with chances for you to get points and pick a winner. We have more than 3 races this weekend, so the special jackpot is back. You will get 3 bonus points if you can guess all 5 winners correctly. So let's start making our picks, guys. We're going to start with the F1 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix winner. Isha, you're up first.
Oh my God, it's so difficult. I don't know who to go with. A real brain scratcher moment right here. Do you think Max Verstappen is a safe choice? I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm going to go with him.
All right, Isha, I think I'm going to follow you out on this limb. I am also going to pick Max Verstappen.
I mean, we have the grid office dog in 24 who's going with Max all the time, so I might as well go with Max as well, too,
right.
making unanimous.
Got the Max sweep. All right, now we have our F1 special game where we pick the 7th place finisher. Isha, who's finishing 7th in the Grand Prix today?
For 7th, I don't know, this might be a bit of a wild pick, but I think Oscar Piastri is going to drop down and finish in 7th. That's my pick.
Interesting. I think Lewis Hamilton is going to move up. I think one of those top cars, maybe Alonso, is going to drop down. I'm going to put Hamilton up in 7th.
I'm going to go with, I think I have to go with Hamilton. He got 7th the last race weekend. I think he's going to end up 7th again behind the McLarens. And yeah, I just think Alonso, clean start, he's going to be well ahead. Hamilton 7th as well.
All right, now we're going to switch over to MotoGP. First, the MotoGP Sprint.
Oh my God, we have so many picks for today. I had to write these down. MotoGP, I am going Jorge Martin.
I am also going to follow the Jorge Martin train.
Make it unanimous. Jorge Martin for the sprint.
All right, now we go into the Qatar Grand Prix for MotoGP.
I'm also, again, going to go Jorge Martin.
Yeah, same. I'm gonna keep going on the Jorge train.
Only just because he's the defending champion. I was thinking Pecco Bagnaia, same Ducati. But Jorge, unless he crashes out or does a bad job handling tires, he almost won this race at one point. So, yeah, this is some interest. And Jorge sweep from all three of us for both. That's going to be really interesting what happens.
We are either shooting to the top of the leaderboard or we are going to drop down. All right, now IndyCar season opener at St. Petersburg. Isha, who are you picking?
IndyCar, I have Alex Palou for my pick.
Solid pick. I think Will Power is going to start this season on a rebound. Maybe this is out of left field, but I'm going to pick Will Power to win.
That would prove Jackson wrong about Will Power being the weak link. You got to see roundtable for that. I think I'm going to go with Kyle Kirkwood. I think he could be the surprise winner. He's from Florida. Kyle Kirkwood with Andretti.
I do see in the chat we have a pick for Romain Grosjean to win at St. Pete. That would certainly be a huge story in his first year with Rimco's. All right, now we're going to move over to our final pick of the day. We've made it. We're going to pick for NASCAR at Phoenix.
I'm going to give this final pick for NASCAR to Kyle Larson.
I am going to follow my Toyota hype for today, and I'm going to pick Christopher Bell.
Wow. I'm going with the Ford. So we've gone Chevy, Toyota, my Ford pick. Ryan Blaney, one position better from last time. He's going to get it.
Interesting.
It's going to be really interesting. Of course, we're going to recap all the races tomorrow on Grid Live Wrap-Up. So be sure to subscribe to us. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss our show tomorrow. We got another stacked week of programs coming up. Sunday, Grid Live Wrap-Up. Recap all the shows approximately 90 minutes after the NASCAR race. Then, Grid Encore. Ben, Brandon, they're going to be recapping the NASCAR Xfinity Series, the ARC Menard Series race. They got a big race over in Phoenix. A lot to cover over there. Grid Tonight Wednesday, the latest on what's going on with the F1 drama over there with Red Bull, FIA. They're going to be on top of it. Kobe, Joshua, and Matt White. Women in Motorsports, Isha and I will be recapping the ARC Race F1 Academy's opening race weekend. Shout out to Dorian Penn, sweeping the race weekend. And of course, a shout out to you, our investors in the Grid Network, calling the show, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew, for investing in us each and every month. You could do a one-time investment through Buy Me a Coffee as well. Get on the leaderboard. Jason leads that leaderboard right now. And of course, we're going to have more special stuff coming up ahead, including the month of April. The Grid Ranking is going to be coming out for the 8th annual Grid Ranking, and then the Endurance Performance Index as well. For Isha Azim and Jackson Todd, I'm Joe Samaniego. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time, and enjoy the races. They're coming up really soon.